The ratings titles were a big addition to Pump It Up XX, and since the beginning they've been inspiring people to push for harder clears. As you advance through the intermediate and the advanced ranks, the jumps get more difficult but continue relatively steady, at least giving you an idea of where to go next. But now, you've conquered Advanced 10, you've pushed all the way through the 23s, and you're stuck here. Welcome to the Expert 1 grind. It's going to be long. We'll get through this. Strap in and let's get to work. Expert 1 is gained for clearing single and double 24s. You need to clear 30 out of a possible 41 songs at time of recording. That's on patch 2.02. It is possible to get some help from a bug that is currently available in the game. It's discussed a little bit, but we're not here to cheat. Let's go ahead and do it the proper way. First things first, we're going to take a look in the top right and notice the big free square. This is Primetime Double Performance 24. It is actually a free clear if you have any business being here in the D24 folder. What you're going to do is take the blue step every time you get an option. Clearing this gives you a 20 for the beginning, and then as soon as you get out of the first two sections, it drops down to maybe a D16 or a 17. It is an absolutely free clear, and if you're going to take any shot at trying to clear 24s, this needs to be your first stop. The rest of the recommendations are going to be split up into categories. Proceed by picking the category you feel the strongest in, and the charts in each of those categories are ordered by approximate difficulty. Start at the top and work your way down in whatever category you feel strongest in. None of them have 30, so you're going to need to pick some from other places, but it's best to work through the ones that you think are going to be in your strongest category. Remember that this is a suggestion, your mileage may vary. There are certainly some players that have an easier time with specific charts for various reasons, whether it's just an affinity for that song or the gimmicks that are used in it. There's nothing to say you can't do these in any other order, or that you can't touch the not recommended ones. It's simply, this is the suggestion of the order that seems easiest to attempt based on personal experience and talking to many other players at the Advanced 10 through Expert 1 level. Single mode. The S24s are going to take a strong basis in all aspects of single play. You're going to need top speed, the ability to hit brackets, a little bit of turning, and especially the ability to slide M runs. Bimera is very daunting to look at, but it is probably the easiest of these single charts. It requires a lot of stamina, but none of the parts in and of themselves are that hard. The ending also looks daunting as it adds a couple of brackets and some threes right at the end, but it's very mashable. If you have any chance of getting through this entire race, you're going to have to clear Bimera at some point, so just go ahead and get it out of the way. Akloas has the bracket turns at the very ending. You're either going to need to be able to turn very slightly for the last 5 seconds, or just mash threes at such a rate that they trigger anyway. Shibnigoroth and Escape are very close to the same chart. They're just a speed check. You're going to have to be able to do runs a little bit above 200, but they're fairly doable and do not require the level of turning or bracketing that you're going to need for the other single. Zero Eyes is the least speed-based, but probably the most technique-based out of the single charts on this difficulty. It will take some memorization to figure out how to get through some of these sections. You're not going to be able to sight read it. However, it's much more mashable than the other ones. The ending can be just spammed through. You don't really need to learn exactly how to do all these turns. Just mash your way through and you'll come out fine. Further and Leather are both very similar in difficulty in that they require some speed and a lot of stamina. Mashing the ending of both will get you to the end with some attempts. These are not free, but they can be pushed through. Skeptic is very, very difficult. It is the hardest of the single 24s, and it probably better belongs in the not recommended category, but that would be very confusing visually, so we've left it here in the chart. Speed and stamina is the largest category. You're going to need to do a few of these regardless, but if you feel strongest in this category, You're going to need to work on running from 190 to 200 BPM and having the ability to push through long stamina sections. There are some other requirements, but most of these are very tough at the end, and they're dangerous primarily because of stamina issues. Some of the songs like Creed First Desire Full Song or B do have elements of turning or technique in them, but they are in this section because the hardest part of them is just to move through the stamina. Conflict doesn't seem particularly difficult in any capacity until you get about halfway through, but having the stamina to finish is a big step, and pushing through that one is going to be a big roadblock out of the way on your path to Expert 1. Everything in the first 5 ranks should be clearable to most players. You can skip a few if you're interested in doing more of the technique charts. The last 2 listed, Flew Far Faster and Final Edition Episode 2-2, are very tough as speed charts and should really only be attempted if you want to max out everything in speed before moving on. Turns and technique. These charts will require a strong turning ability or a refined strategy to slide or mash through turning sections. Other techniques like sliding M-runs or strong bracketing fundamentals will be needed to get through everything in this category. Imprinting is one of the easiest 24s simply because you don't have to do all the turns. This is a tutorial on how to mash. If you want to get any of the ones in the turns and technique, you need to get imprinting. Even if you're not turning it, just mash your way through. Sorceress Elise follows along the same idea. If you try to do every turn, it gets very difficult, but if you learn some mashing techniques and work on bracketing, it becomes a lot more doable. The final run of Hyacinth follows very similarly. If you try to do every turn, it is very, very difficult, but if you work on mashing techniques, it can be cleared fairly early on in this folder. V3 is like a harder version of imprinting. The same idea applies. You don't really want to do every turn, you just want to pick the ones that are important to you and slide through the rest of them. The bottom half of this section will require specific learning for each chart. Dignity has the famous M-Run section that will require you to find a way through it. It is strongly suggested that you do it with the sliding technique that most people use. But if you're very fast, you might be able to do it as just speed. Gunrock looks extremely daunting at first, but with the sliding M-Run technique and a lot of work on brackets, this will actually become one of the safest and most consistent clears. Final Audition Episode 2X is also a famous chart. You must learn the technique if you want to beat it. It is very unlikely that you'll be able to beat it without learning the rolling bracket technique. And if you're planning on trying anything harder than 24s, that technique will appear quite a lot on higher difficulties, so it's worth learning it. Banya P guitar is the ultimate in technique. It's extremely frustrating. It feels like a lot of little individual sections that you need to memorize a way through. But it's slow. So if you do take the time to learn how to get through the various sections, it should be very consistent eventually. Not recommended charts. Most players probably won't be clearing these in their first 30 that they need to get the expert title. As mentioned before, your mileage may vary. Specifically, taller players or more flexible players report that Wixdakba seems fairly doable. Many players, when they first come up to this level, look at the ending of Wixdakba as a completely unassailable, impossible task that they'll never be able to clear. If it calls to you, have fun, but I would generally suggest staying away unless you feel really driven to it. Bedlam is very close to a harder version of Banya P guitar. It feels like a series of individual tech choices that you have to memorize a way through. It's quite difficult, but again, if you feel called to it, go for it. Time for the Moon Knight Full is very doable for the first 2/3. The problem is that it's very long and the ending is extremely difficult. It's listed in the not recommended category simply for the number of times you're going to fail in the last 10 seconds after completing a full mode song. Uranium is similarly very difficult in the second half after having an almost free first half. Again, some players report this as feeling much easier, but it doesn't seem as easy to bracket and cheat your way through as some of the ones listed in the terms and technique category. Akloas, Annihilator Method, and Vulcan are probably the hardest charts in this difficulty. They're all doable, but unless you're really doubling down on speed and stamina, these endings have a tendency to be too frustrating for most players, and you can probably get your 30 without coming here. After you clear your 30, it's entirely worthwhile to try and finish out the rest of the folder, but it's not recommended to try these before you have a good hold on all of the other lower difficulty. All these categories are ordered by vague difficulty, but these are fairly contentious, and it's unlikely that you will have exactly the same response to all of these charts as everyone else. If you enjoy the songs or you're particularly pulled to the charts, they are all counting as D24s. Each one counts just as much as any other chart on the list. If you do want to take shots at anything, go ahead and do them in whatever order, but this is our suggestion. Good luck with the grind. It is a long journey, but it's extremely rewarding to get to the end. Definitely best of luck in your pushing.